It's September now. I haven't been up in the woods to drag down logs since April. A lot of things intervened. First, the rear brake on my ATV was damaged, and it wasn't safe for me to go up that steep hill with only one brake. Then, I got a free pile of logs that took me quite a while to mill. And I had COVID, and I dislocated a finger rather severely, and it's still not quite back normal. But the rainy season will begin soon. I need to get the rest of these logs down. There are only two I really need: a tall, straight alder from which I will mill boards for my daughter and son-in-law's cabinet building project. The ground is very dry this time of year, and it's difficult to get traction in the loose soil on the steep slope. I put it in four-wheel drive and locked the front differential so all four wheels are working equally. I walked up this far a few weeks ago with a new string trimmer to clear out blackberries and brush and ferns along the trail. Farther up here in the woods, there's not so much undergrowth. This short trail I cut into the side hill is really too narrow for comfort. One of these days perhaps I'll widen it, but I'm almost finished with these logs up here, so maybe I won't. My 250 feet, or maybe 300 feet of rope has been lying up here all year. The first thing I noticed is how much lighter it is now that it's dry. A scattered pile of feathers on the ground is a mute story of life and death in the woods. I'd forgotten that I cut 3 or 4 small spruce trees that will be in the way when I skid logs farther down the hill. I cut them last spring. They're still standing. I'll have to drag them down before I skid logs farther down the hill. The rope passes through a turning block so I can pull logs straight down the hill to this point. After they're all here, I have enough rope to pull them straight down to the trail below. One thing that concerns me just a little, the slope is so steep below this point, I'm afraid that gravity will overcome resistance, and these logs in the skidding cone might shoot down the hill like a javelin, go past the trail, and perhaps all the way to the driveway. Now that I have the rope free, I need to take the cone and the rope all the way up the hill to where the 3 remaining logs lie. I didn't count how many times I walked up this and back down, but it was many. I hadn't done any serious uphill walking since April, and my legs let me know they were not in the best of shape. Well, there are only 3 remaining logs at the top of the hill. I'd forgotten about this one that I got partway down until it snagged in this clump of trees. Nearly all of the logs got hung up in this clump of 4 or 5 trees. I considered cutting them all down, but if I cut down every tree that got in my way, I wouldn't have any trees left. Because I don't have a quick release connection for the lead rope, I find it easiest just to use a loop to feed through the end of the cone. When I began using the skidding cone, the problem was the slope is so steep, the cone would bounce out ahead of the log and become useless. I solved that problem by opening the rope with a fid and inserting a dowel to keep the cone on the log. Hooking up the rope to the ATV is time-consuming, so I thought I'd try to pull this one by hand. I quickly changed my mind. The problem with tying a knot and pulling against it is it's almost impossible to get the knot untied afterwards. Even a bowline becomes almost frozen. So I just make a loose knot that will barely hold, but there's enough rope there that no single part of it gets too tight to take apart. It's times like this when I wish I'd dug this trail a little wider. Operating an ATV or a tractor on a side hill is extremely dangerous. I've rolled this thing twice. I don't want to do it again. So I get off and stand on the high side. So if it goes, I won't. That log is hung up on something, even with a skidding cone. So back up the hill I go. There's nothing hanging that log up. I just wasn't pulling hard enough. With the ATV in that precarious position, sliding sideways off the trail, I was afraid to force it. I have to reach over to the other side to shift into a forward gear. That throttle extension is a shotgun shell. At the time I bought this ATV more than 20 years ago, if you wanted a throttle extension, that was another $20. This one was free. It's lasted over 20 years. It'll probably outlast me. I'll retie the rope to the hook on the winch, and now I have a straight pull with the gravity on my side to pull the log down the hill. At least that's the plan. Except for short periods of time when the camera batteries died, I kept the camera running the entire afternoon. My intent was to give a real-time demonstration what all this involves for an old guy like me. But that turned out to be about 4 hours of walking up and down the hill and 30 minutes worth of perhaps interesting stuff. So I'm going to skip all the dull stuff and only do the interesting stuff from here on out. That's as far as I can back up without repositioning the ATV. And now we'll go up and see how far down the log came. Sometimes I wish this slope was just a little bit steeper. But that's all right. This log is now down the hill far enough that I have enough rope to reach it from the trail below after I get the other logs down this far. Now comes more of the fun part, carrying the cone and dragging the rope back up the hill to the other logs. It's probably no more than 150 feet, but it's all very much uphill. When the drag of the rope becomes too much, I stop and pull a bunch up the hill and lay it in a pile to draw from as I continue my hike. That should be enough, more than enough, to get me up to the logs. This trail was bare dirt last spring. Things go fast in my neck of the woods. The length of rope I'm dragging is too heavy again, so I stop and pull up a bunch more. The small end of the first of the three logs up here is somewhere under that pile of brush. Of course, I don't have a saw or a hatchet or even gloves with me. There is such a jumble of brush and branches in here. I take some time to make sure I'm tying on to the correct log. The upside of this hill being so steep, if I fall down toward the hill, I don't have far to fall. Control this shit. This log is not very big and not very straight, but it is in the way of the two I want, which are farther up the hill. And it's too good to let rot, so I'll drag it down. Because the loop on this small tree doesn't use much rope, the dowel is too far from the cone. I didn't bring the fid with me, so I can't move it. This rope is wound much too tight to unwind and poke a stick through. So what I ended up doing was stuffing the opening full of sticks, hoping that the pressure and the friction on the rope would keep the cone on the log. I had enough rope to run through the turning block and out to the main trail, which would give me a long run downhill, but that didn't do much good. I backed up enough to take the stretch out of the rope and let me slip the loop off the trailer hitch, and then it was back up the hill to see what the problem was. It wasn't the first time I'd seen this problem, and it would not be the last. The rope was on one side of a tree, the log went around the other side, or tried to. I had sense enough to bring the fid and a tent peg with me this time. The tent peg would be easier to slip through the strands of the rope. Nothing to do but loosen the rope, take the rope around the tree to the side the log was on, and reattach it. That cone slides quite easily when there's not a log in it. Well, either the rope broke or we're finally getting somewhere. I turn the machine around amid stumps and briars and head back up the hill. Well, what a surprise. My old friend, the clump of trees again. I know the fit is around here somewhere. Again, a few turns and a loose knot is all it takes. Now what? Well, I expected to pull it a little farther, but the wheels are spinning, so it's time to quit. Well, the problem's not a problem, it's what I expected. The knot won't go through the turning block. This is the end of the line. Well, except for maybe a little more that I can pull down with an assist from gravity. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There are only 2 more logs up there, both of them the straight ones that I want. Maybe I'll get them both today. But the way things have been going, maybe not. So, as before, I stage the rope so I don't have to drag all 250 or 300 feet of it and make my way back up the hill to get the next one. The rope hung up on something, so I have to go back down to see what it is. I hope I don't have to go down far. It turned out the rope's not really hung up. It's just I'm pulling the full length of it, and it got hard to pull suddenly, and I thought it was caught on something, which it often is. As long as I'm going back up the hill, I might as well carry rope. But I was dragging a loop behind me, and now it is stuck. On a little tree root. I don't know about you, but I'm about ready for a beer. All this to get back to where the previous tree was, The other two are a little bit higher. Oh, I would love to get these two at the same time. The log in the background is shorter. It's also bigger in diameter, being the base of the tree, and there's no way I could pull it up even with this one to try to get them both in the skidding cone. And even if I did, the combined weight would probably be more than I could pull. These two logs are probably stuck to the ground after lying here untouched for many months. So I grabbed a branch to use for a pry bar to break them loose in hopes that would make it easier to get them started down the hill. I'm using the fid to save wear and tear on my hands, and using the drag of the rope as brakes as I go down the steep hill. My legs are getting a little tired. Tires are spinning already. That's not good. What little movement there was merely stretch in the rope. And it's a long way up to the other end. Of course, the camera battery died before I got back up there, and of course I didn't have a spare in my pocket. I was able to free the log a little bit, rocking it against the tension of the rope, and it slid down a few feet. Then I was back down the hill to give it another pull with the ATV, and again it stopped. When I got back up the hill, I discovered the cone had come off the log.
Where did the tent peg go?
The cone had come off the log, but the front of the log had not dug into the ground, so I didn't know why it stopped. As I walked up the log to look for the reason, I also looked for the tent peg, but I never found it. I'd have to improvise. I put the fid into the ground ahead of the cone to keep it from sliding down to the knot again. The only thing I found that might possibly have stopped the log was this branch stub that had hit the tree, but it was almost all the way past it. So maybe it hit, stopped the log, stopped the ATV, and if I'd just pulled a little more, it might have started moving again. But it would have soon stopped without the nose cone on the front. The next task was to get enough clearance under the log that I could get the cone back on. Because of the slight crook to the right as we look at it here, I need to roll it to the left, but it's up against the trees on the left, so I can't do that. Not without a PV or a cant hook, which is naturally
At the sawmill shed. Wonder if we can dig under that.
I hadn't found the tent peg, and none of the small sticks on the ground were small enough and strong enough to serve as a cone retainer. So I just used the fid. If you were wondering how that can of ale magically appeared, that was something you missed when a camera battery had died. My wife hiked all the way up here with it, knowing I'd be in need of a refreshment. Every man should be blessed with a wife like mine. This late in the afternoon, even the spindly dowel makes a useful walking stick. Well, what a surprise. My old friend, a clump of trees. I'd considered running the rope down this side of the trees, but if I had, the log would have gone the other way. I have a lifetime of familiarity with Murphy's Law. So again, I removed the cone and the rope, moved the rope to the same side of the trees the log is on, and put it all back together. You've seen that more than once, so we'll skip it this time. I was baffled. The log had hardly moved at all. I had no idea what might be hanging it up. Much more of this, and I'm going to need another rail. Just that. The tree was wedged in such a way that even that little obstruction wouldn't go past the tree.
Wow, that bastard is wedged in there. That's just absolutely not moving. Well, if you're looking at this in terms of accomplishment, that is getting a job towards completion, you might say this is not a good day. I'd much rather be wasting all day moving 2 logs and sitting in front of a computer playing solitaire, in front of a television, playing video games, whatever it is sedentary folk do. Yeah, this is kind of hard work for an 80-year-old. Probably won't be able to do this too many more years. But I would rather drop dead in the woods wrestling a stuck log at 80 than die at a rest home at 95. I guarantee you that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that was a quick transition. This video is getting too long, and you and I are both getting tired of watching me go up and down the hill on the ATV. Well, that's done, and I'm about done too. I'll get this thing turned around, make one more pull, and call it a day. I guess I must be getting tired, tripping over my own feet. I know. I said one more pull and then I'd call it quits. But, as usual, curiosity got the best of me. What stopped it this time? The log had been trapped because it wasn't perfectly straight. Two trees on one side, one on the other, and the curve in the log just the wrong way. When I rolled it a little bit, it freed it up, and one more pull should get it down here with the rest of them. That's as far as I can pull it. The knot won't go through the turning block.
One more. Get it tomorrow. Cocktail hour, time I get down the hill and get things put away. That's about 4 hours. I forgot to note the start time. I'd get more done if I wasn't running cameras at the same time. I'm tired.